Hi guys, Simon Trizelian here and welcome to Lockdown Chronicles 13 and happy Easter to you all. It's a very weird Easter this year, given that this is usually such a high time of celebration both for children and adults alike, and obviously a very significant part of the Christian calendar, and everyone is almost like really doing Easter this year, in that, you know, there's the confinement, there's the almost like the feelings of darkness, there is almost like the waiting for new hope. So I just wanted to just give a message out today to all of you that have been, you know, like me, dealing with the confinement that we've had over the last few weeks. But of course, Easter comes from the festival of Esther, which was the goddess of fertility. And in pre-Christian times, the ancient humankind used to appreciate this time because they saw, the lambs in the fields, and they saw the new fertility. And this is why we have Easter eggs and everything. And they saw it as a time of newness, of new beginnings, of new growth, of new life. And therefore it was a great celebration as they moved towards, you know, the spring equinox, as they moved towards May Day, which was of course one of the biggest fertility festivals that they had. You know, so the Christian aspect of that 3 days of darkness, of the sacrifice, you know, the leaving behind of the blood, the significant death, and then the rising again, is truly where we are right now. We've seen the death of a lot of things. We've seen the death of businesses. We've seen the actual death of people. We've seen the death of people's livelihoods, of their way of life, of their freedoms. There's been a lot of that. But this is not a true death, in that we're not seeing the end times, not just yet anyway. We're seeing a time where there are major changes, and there will be changes in the way that we do life after this. I think this has given people a significant time to reevaluate, certainly to be looking at what is truly important in their life, what is necessary in their life. I think some of our buying decisions are going to be different after this. Certainly our appreciation for the small things in life, like restaurants and waitresses and things like this, are going to change. But this is a very significant time, and it's been all the way through history, so it's nothing really new. I mean, the Masonic ritual of the 3 days of death, the three days of darkness, with Hiram Abiff being raised into Masonry from being in the grave. We see it in Egyptian ritual as well, with the priesthood actually being raised into new life after 3 days of being entombed. You know, so this is something that, as human beings, it's in our consciousness. It's been there for a very, very long time. But in all aspects of that, in every single human myth, if you like, or legend, that 3 days is not just 3 days of doing nothing. It's 3 days of preparing. And at the end of that 3 days, it's a raising into mastery. It's not just a case of coming out and it's business as usual. This is not going to be business as usual. We are rising right now as human beings. We're rising into our mastery, and we're going to be better than any time in our past. And that's really what I believe. I believe that we're going to be stronger. You know, when you're placed into a situation like this, you know, where we have no choice, then our freedom becomes almost paramount. We're beginning to see this now. In one of my previous videos, I said that this 14-day threshold is a psychological barrier for human beings. We can deal with 14 days. After that 14 days, people start to go, hang on. But what's happening right now? People are starting to question. They're not just blindly taking what the government have said. We all know that the numbers are wrong. I would like to see someone actually say, well, we know how many deaths, because they say it every day, almost like a scorecard every day of these new deaths. But how many of those deaths are heart disease, are accidents, are cancer, are all the ones that we know that on a daily basis are very, very high. And I think in some ways we're being fooled in that way. We're actually being manipulated to think that the situation, although dire, is actually worse than it actually is, in order to be able to get you to comply. And I think that that is the real issue here. At some point, we need to be, just like in the Jesus story, you stand up and you rebel against the status quo, because you can only do that from a position of mastery gained from a position of confinement. And I think that is the real key here. So we have to start to look at how we're going to be in this new life. We need to prepare now so that we can actually be useful to our fellow man, to useful to our families, to useful to our communities when the stone is rolled away and we do emerge from the darkness and we actually come into that new life. And I think that is going to be a very, very highly significant day for a lot of people. So in some ways we're going to have to, adapt, we're going to have to adopt, we're going to have to ascend. We're going to have to adapt to new things in life. It may be a new financial system. It could literally be that. It could be a new way that we greet people or that we interact with people. We're going to have to adapt to some of the new elements that are going to be in our life. And then we're going to have to adopt new practices. And it may be as simple as just washing our hands more. I mean, really not too much of a bad thing. We are going to be more conscious now, I think, of how we treat our food, how we interact with people, just our hygiene and all of that. I think that's just going to be a given. So we are going to have to adopt new habits and then prepare to ascend to something greater. I really feel in my water right now that this is a time for opportunity. This is not a time just for sitting on my arse and doing nothing. This is a time for preparation. I've been planning, I've been preparing, I've been getting everything ready for this moment. And as soon as that stone is rolled, I'm going to be out of there. I'm going to be moving. And it's an encouraging, powerful time. And not without its challenge. But growth only happens under substantial pressure. We see this in diamonds, we see this in butterflies breaking free of cocoons. We see actually with all of our birth. I mean, that was a stressful time. Ask your mother, with that push of coming out of the womb and emerging into this life, with that cry to show that you're there. I am here. At that point, new life emerges from the darkness. It emerges from the womb. It emerges from the tomb. And at that point, magic happens. So prepare for the magic. This is Simon Trizelian. Happy Easter to you all, whichever religion you are, however you wish to thrive and survive on these magical days. Take care. Bye-bye now.